One of my very earliest gaming memories as a child was the Christmas that the Game Boy was released here in the UK. With my dad being a gamer too at the time, we didn't just get a Game Boy with the pack-in Tetris. Oh no. We got it with a ton of games, including Turtles, Batman, Chase HQ, and many more, which in a way started me on my journey as a gamer, as it was the first handheld console I ever owned. We played it to death like many kids, and so much so that my parents dropped the money on the mains AC adapter as we were going through batteries like crazy. Like many parents of the 80s, mine got hooked on Tetris in a big way. I remember sitting around with my brothers and sisters, and we'd all take it in turns to try and beat each other's high scores. The whole country seemed to go Tetris crazy, and it's one of the few games in my lifetime that seems to bring everyone together. There was something simple, satisfying and addicting about Tetris, which is why it's probably one of the most ported and updated games of all time. I won't go into the story about how its Russian creator didn't really make any money from the game, and instead I will naturally of course be focusing on the new Tetris, which was a 1999 release for the Nintendo 64. Sata created the first Tetris game on Nintendo 64, but it was never released here in the West. The new Tetris was developed by H2O Entertainment and published by Nintendo to generally positive reviews from game magazines and websites of the time, which is very solid considering the stiff history the game is trying to live up to. The game adds some intelligent new features to mix things up. The most notable one is the swap feature, which allows you to swap out a piece on the fly with a new piece being positioned in the hold area. This simple feature alone will divide some fans of the series, but for me it was a welcome addition, and meant that I could spend more time clearing rows than restarting games. Speaking of clearing rows, there's also a new addition in the form of clearing blocks in square shapes. By making 4x4 squares, they will change colour and allow you to use them to rack up multipliers and combos for high scoring. The squares will either turn silver or gold depending on which blocks you use to make them, so naturally getting a gold square will mean even more points. Graphically, the game does the job, but it's clearly not the best looking game on the N64. All of the blocks are sprite based, and they do have some nice lighting and texture details to give them a slight 3D look. Thankfully, due to the simplistic nature of the game, there is no slowdown whatsoever, and this never occurs even when the speed is at its highest. The graphical theme of the game is Wonders of the World, and so there are a nice selection of backgrounds to unlock, and this is achieved by clearing a certain number of lines. Be prepared for a marathon however, as you'll need to clear thousands of lines before you unlock more backgrounds to use, but this can be sped up by playing the game in multiplayer as those lines are added to your total. Speaking of multiplayer, this really is where the game shines. As the game has implemented the garbage feature where you can dump cleared blocks onto opponents, the game adds some great tactical elements in 4-player mode. You can of course choose to gang up, which is bound to cause arguments, or be tactical and screw over an opponent who's about to hit a Tetris. Or you can be the assassin and choose to dump on a player who's nearing the top of their screen. With 4 players in the game, it's a whole lot of fun, and it's an easy one even for non-gamers to play, and you'll be having fun together pretty quickly. Unfortunately, there is no onboard memory to save your progress, but you can save to a memory card. This is handy, especially if you're wanting to unlock all of the extra backgrounds and the additional music tracks which the game challenges you to do. Speaking of the music, Neil Voss was brought back to score the game after his previous work on the 3D take on Tetris, which was Tetrisphere. If you like the music in that game, then you'll love this one, as nothing has changed really in terms of the style, so it's really down to your love of 19 techno's music as to how you will like it. Personally, I think it works well, and a techno-inspired classic Tetris song which we all know and love was nicely done. The sound effects on the other hand are basic at best, but they are all sharply recorded and sound crisp and clear. Anyway, I've blabbed on enough about this game I think, so in short, if you like Tetris even remotely, then you'll like this. And for collectors, it's fairly cheap still and not all that hard to find, and it's almost as addictive as the original Tetris. Now what I really wanted to move on to was perhaps the best Easter egg in the history of video games. If you subscribe to my good buddy Chipsters the Easter Egg Hunter, then you'll have been entertained for ages now with his in-depth knowledge and exploration of Easter eggs. But surprisingly, the new Tetris has perhaps the best Easter egg, and one which you really need to hear about to believe. Hidden away in the game's code was an incredible text and image rant totaling over 2,000 words by David Priddy, who was the game's lead programmer. In his rant he really goes off on one in a big way. He tears into the game's producer, who he says did nothing on the game except for sitting around and playing other video games and mocking his knowledge of coding and management. He also tears into other staff members for not having the balls to admit their own mistakes, and backing down to Nintendo's demands. Funnily, he also says that composer Neil Voss is an incredible composer, but is one of the laziest people he has ever met, and needs to get some drive to go far in his career. He then states that this will be his last project for H2O, as he is moving to the 3DO company, and he thanks some of the people at the company that he likes, and the friends who he misses who moved to Canada while he got stuck finishing the game. He then writes the list of 50 things he most hates, which includes games having 64 at the end of the titles, and when he has to watch programmer demo reels which show really crappy work. This is shortly followed by some strange ramblings full of nonsense and some text artwork which he created. If you do just one thing today, then thumbs up this video, but if you do another thing, then head down to the link in the description below to read the entire file ripped from the game's ROM. Trust me, you won't regret it. As always, thank you for watching this video, and for this video's discussion, let me know what you think of this epic Easter egg. And until next time.